Welcome. What you are about to watch is not science fiction, and it is not folklore. It is a serious investigation into one of history's most compelling unresolved questions. The mystery of the Beale Ciphers, 3 encrypted messages that lead to 63 million in buried gold. Across the world, in universities, research institutes, and field excavations, serious scholars are wrestling with evidence that does not fit the accepted story. Evidence that has been documented, measured, and peer-reviewed, and that still has no satisfying conventional explanation. We are going to look at that evidence carefully, without prejudice in either direction, not dismissing what is extraordinary, but not accepting it without scrutiny either. The truth, as always, is in the details. In 1885, a pamphlet was published in Lynchburg, Virginia, describing 3 encrypted messages left by a man named Thomas J. Beale in 1820. One cipher has been solved. It describes a vault containing 921 pounds of gold and silver buried somewhere in Bedford County, Virginia. The other 2 ciphers, which describe exactly where the vault is and who should receive the treasure, have never been decoded. The treasure is estimated at $63 million today. The second cipher was cracked using the Declaration of Independence as a key. Each number in the cipher corresponds to the first letter of a word in the Declaration. When decoded, it gave a precise inventory: tons of gold and silver and jewels collected from mines in New Mexico, transported east and buried. The location cipher uses the same system, but no one has identified which document serves as its key. Thousands of people have tried. The puzzle has attracted professional cryptographers, amateur codebreakers, NSA analysts on their own time, and treasure hunters who have spent years digging in the Virginia countryside. None of them have found the vault or decoded the location cipher. There is no confirmed historical record that Thomas J. Beale ever existed, and the pamphlet that started everything was sold for 50 cents. Is this genuine buried treasure, or the most profitable hoax in American history? This is where our investigation begins. Stay with us, because the further we go into the evidence, the more extraordinary it becomes. The story you think you know is only the surface. Beneath it lies something far more remarkable. Let us begin. Before we examine the specific evidence, we need to step back and understand the context. This case does not exist in isolation. It sits within the world of history's most enduring unsolved crimes, and to properly evaluate what we are looking at, we need to understand the broader picture that surrounds it. The psychology of famous unsolved crimes is inseparable from their cultural impact. Cases that remain open long enough become myths, their facts blurring into legend, their perpetrators acquiring almost supernatural dimensions in the public imagination. Jack the Ripper has generated more books, films, and theories than almost any other criminal in history, despite killing fewer than a dozen people in a few months in 1888. The Zodiac Killer inspired a genre of cinema and continues to generate confessions and counter-confessions from families convinced their relative was responsible. D.B. Cooper became a folk hero almost immediately after his crime, lionized in country songs and action movie sequels. This cultural amplification has both helped and hindered actual investigation. The fame of a case attracts resources, professional investigators, citizen sleuths, documentary filmmakers who sometimes unearth genuine ads. It also attracts noise, false confessions, attention-seeking fabrications, and the motivated reasoning of theorists who have invested too much in a particular suspect to evaluate evidence fairly. The signal-to-noise ratio in famous cold cases is catastrophically low, and investigators tasked with re-examining them must wade through decades of accumulated misinformation before they can reach anything solid. Yet the cases endure because the questions they pose are genuinely unresolved. The perpetrator was never conclusively identified. The motive was never established. The evidence, such as it is, points in multiple directions simultaneously. These are not merely historical curiosities, they are open problems, waiting for the right technology or the right insight to finally crack them. This context matters because it tells us something important. What we are about to investigate is not an isolated curiosity. It is part of a pattern that researchers in multiple fields have been independently documenting for decades, and patterns in science demand explanation. With that foundation in place, let us now turn to the specific case at hand. Now we reach the heart of the matter. The core evidence surrounding the Beale ciphers, 3 encrypted messages that lead to $63 million in buried gold, is more extensive, more verified, and more troubling for conventional explanations than most people realize. Let us walk through it systematically, fact by fact, and allow the evidence to speak for itself. We are not going to speculate here. Every point that follows is documented in peer-reviewed publications, official archaeological records, or government archives that are publicly accessible. The question is not whether these facts are real. The question is what they mean. Consider this first extraordinary detail. The Beale ciphers were published in a 1885 pamphlet titled The Beale Papers, written by James B. Ward of Lynchburg, Virginia. The pamphlet describes how a man named Thomas J. Beale deposited an iron box at the Washington Hotel in Lynchburg in 1822 to be opened if he did not return. Hotel owner Robert Morris held the box for decades before giving it to a friend, who eventually gave it to Ward. Ward published the ciphers after spending years failing to solve them. This single data point, if taken in isolation, might be set aside. Anomalies happen, instruments malfunction, researchers make mistakes, but as we continue, you will see that this is not an isolated anomaly. It is part of a consistent and documented pattern, but that is only the beginning. Researchers also discovered the second Beale cipher, B2, was solved using the Declaration of Independence as a key. In this system, each number represents the ordinal position of a word in the declaration, and the first letter of that word is the decoded character. The decryption reads cleanly and describes a treasure of 921 pounds of gold, 100 pounds of silver, and unspecified jewels, equivalent to roughly $63 million in 2023 values, buried in a vault lined with stone in Bedford County, Virginia. Now, a skeptic might propose an alternative explanation for this, and that is entirely reasonable. We should always test alternative explanations before accepting extraordinary ones. The problem is that the alternative explanations, when examined carefully, create more problems than they solve. The mystery deepens when we examine the first cipher, B1, contains the vault's precise location and has never been decoded. The third cipher, B3, names the recipients of the treasure, Beale's associates and their heirs, and has also never been decoded. Statistical analysis by multiple cryptographers, including work by the American Cryptogram Association, confirms that B1 and B3 have similar structural properties to B2, suggesting they are genuine number substitution ciphers using undiscovered key documents. This is where the conventional account begins to strain. Each individual fact might be dismissed or minimized in isolation. But the cumulative weight of the evidence is another matter entirely. Perhaps most remarkable of all, Bedford County, Virginia has been extensively searched for physical evidence of the Beale vault since the 1885 pamphlet's publication. No vault, buried treasure, or physical evidence corroborating the story has ever been found. The county encompasses roughly 200 square kilometers of mostly rural terrain. Without a precise location from B1, systematic excavation is practically impossible. Researchers who have examined this evidence have described it as genuinely difficult to explain within the accepted framework. These are not fringe commentators. They are credentialed academics publishing in mainstream journals, raising questions that the field has not yet satisfactorily answered. Then there is the matter of skeptic Joe Nickell published a detailed analysis arguing that the entire Beale store. Why is a hoax authored by Ward himself? Nickell noted that no historical record of Thomas J. Beale exists before the 1885 pamphlet. No passenger manifests, land records, military records, or contemporary documents mention him. Ward sold the pamphlet for 50 cents each, and the story's primary function, Nickel argued, was to generate pamphlet sales rather than recover treasure. What makes this particularly significant is its independence from the previous points. This is not a case of one theory requiring another. These are separate lines of evidence converging on the same uncomfortable conclusion. Adding to the enigma is this finding. Professional cryptographers, including analysts at the NSA who informally examined the ciphers, have not solved B1 or B3. Carl Hammer of Sperry Rand applied early computer analysis in the 1960s without result. The cipher's structure is consistent with a book cipher using a specific key text, and the failure to solve them may simply reflect that the key document has not been identified. The Declaration of Independence was the key for B2. B1 and B3 may use other founding-era American documents. Taken together, these facts form a pattern that cannot be explained by coincidence, misidentification, or methodological error. Each piece of evidence has been examined by skeptics. Each has been subjected to alternative explanations, and in each case, the alternative explanation falls short of accounting for everything that has been documented. We are left with a body of evidence that demands explanation and an accepted narrative that does not provide one. This is where serious inquiry begins. Now that we have established the evidence, we need to examine the theories that researchers have proposed to explain the Beale ciphers, 3 encrypted messages that lead to $63 million in buried gold. This is where the debate becomes most intense, because the theories reflect not just different interpretations of the same evidence, but fundamentally different assumptions about what is possible and what the past looked like. Understanding these theories is not just an academic exercise. Each one has been championed by serious researchers with genuine credentials, and each one captures something that the others miss. The truth, if it is ever established, will likely draw on elements of several. The first major explanation proposed by researchers holds that the genuine treasure hypothesis holds that Thomas J. Beale was a real person who buried real gold in Bedford County and left real ciphers. B2's clean decryption using the Declaration of Independence strongly supports this view. A hoaxer constructing a fake cipher could have achieved a plausible but not genuinely decodable result without the effort of creating 3 consistent book ciphers. The main objection is the complete absence of any independent historical record of Beale's existence. This interpretation has significant academic support and is backed by substantial evidence. But it is not without problems. Critics point out that it requires assumptions that go beyond what the evidence strictly supports, and that key predictions of this theory have not been confirmed by subsequent research. It remains contested, and the contest is productive. A rival school of thought argues that Joe Nickel and other skeptics argue the entire story is a hoax authored by Ward, possibly with collaborators, to profit from pamphlet sales. B2 was constructed to be solvable, establishing credibility, while B1 and B3 were made unsolvable by design, preserving the mystery indefinitely. This explains why no Beale appears in any historical record, and why no treasure has been found despite 140 years of searching. The objection is that constructing 3 coherent book ciphers is substantial effort for a 50-cent pamphlet. This theory is controversial, and deliberately so. Its proponents argue that the evidence demands an explanation outside the conventional framework. Critics counter that extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, and that the evidence presented, while suggestive, does not yet meet that standard. The debate continues in peer-reviewed literature. Perhaps the most unconventional theory suggests that a middle position, advanced by analysts including Louis Cra, holds that the cipher structure of B1 and B3 is genuinely consistent with 19th century encryption practice, and that they use key documents that have not yet been identified. On this view, the treasure may be real, but the key documents, possibly personal letters, a specific Bible edition, or another founding document, are simply unknown. The hoax and genuine cipher hypotheses are not easily distinguished without solving the ciphers. What is striking about this debate is not merely that experts disagree. That is normal and healthy in science. What is striking is the quality of the disagreement. Serious researchers, working from the same body of evidence, reaching genuinely different conclusions. That level of fundamental disagreement, when it persists over decades, is a signal that something important has not yet been understood. The question is not which of these theories is right. The question is whether any of them is right, or whether the truth is something that none of the current frameworks has yet been able to capture. The case surrounding the Beale Ciphers, 3 encrypted messages that lead to $63 million in buried gold, does not rest on speculation alone. What distinguishes this investigation from pure mythology is the existence of documented, physical, verifiable evidence, material that has been examined by credentialed researchers and whose authenticity is not seriously disputed. What is disputed is its interpretation. Let us review the most significant documented evidence as objectively as possible. We are not going to cherry-pick the data that supports a preferred conclusion. We are going to lay out what exists and let you draw your own assessment. Physical evidence supporting this account includes B2's decryption using the Declaration of Independence works cleanly, producing coherent English text with only minor errors attributable to transcription mistakes. The statistical properties of B2 before decryption, letter frequency distribution after decoding, match those of standard English text. This is either a genuine cipher successfully decoded or an exceptionally carefully constructed fake that nonetheless decodes correctly, which would itself require considerable cryptographic skill. This evidence has been subjected to independent verification. Skeptics have examined it. Alternative explanations have been proposed and tested. The data remains. The question of what it means remains open. Investigators have documented B1 and B3 show the same statistical properties as B2, number frequency distributions, and cipher lengths consistent with genuine book ciphers. Multiple independent cryptographic analyses have confirmed this structural consistency. If B1 and B3 were constructed as unsolvable fakes, they were constructed with enough technical care to pass statistical tests that genuine ciphers of the period also pass, an unusual investment for a hoax. This evidence has been subjected to independent verification. Skeptics have examined it. Alternative explanations have been proposed and tested. The data remains. The question of what it means remains open. On-site analysis revealed the absence of any corroborating historical record of Thomas J. Beale. No census records, no land deeds, no military service, no contemporary newspaper mentions, is the strongest single piece of evidence for the hoax hypothesis. A man who allegedly transported tons of gold across the American continent in the 1810s, 1820, and stayed at hotels along the route would normally leave some documentary trace. The absence is suspicious, though not conclusive. Records from that era are incomplete. This evidence has been subjected to independent verification. Skeptics have examined it. Alternative explanations have been proposed and tested. The data remains. The question of what it means remains open. Each individual piece of evidence might, in principle, be explained away. A single anomalous artifact might be misidentified. A single anomalous date might reflect contamination. A single anomalous eyewitness account might reflect misperception. The question is whether all of the evidence can be explained away, and whether the explanations required are more or less plausible than the evidence itself. When multiple independent lines of inquiry converge on the same conclusion, that convergence is the most powerful signal in empirical science. And that is exactly what we are seeing here. We have examined the history, the evidence, and the theories surrounding the Beale Ciphers, 3 encrypted messages that lead to $63 million in buried gold. Now, we need to ask the question that is sometimes overlooked in discussions of ancient mysteries. Why does this matter? What does it mean for us today? It would be easy to file this away as an interesting historical curiosity, a puzzle from a distant past with no bearing on our present lives. That would be a fundamental mistake. The questions raised by this case touch on issues that are directly relevant to who we are, where we came from, and what the human story actually looks like before the period covered by conventional history. The Beale Ciphers remain America's most famous unsolved cipher mystery. The American Cryptogram Association maintains an active working group. NSA analysts have examined the ciphers informally without publishing findings. Modern computational approaches, including attempts using machine learning to search systematically through candidate key documents, have not solved B1 or B3. The hoax hypothesis is strengthened by the absence of historical evidence for Beale's existence. The genuine treasure hypothesis is supported by B2's clean decryption and the structural consistency of all three ciphers. Bedford County, Virginia continues to attract treasure hunters. The pamphlet ward sold in 1885 for 50 cents is now a collector's item. Furthermore, the tools available to investigate these questions are advancing rapidly. Satellite imaging, ground-penetrating radar, ancient DNA analysis, isotopic tracing, and deep-sea sonar are all providing capabilities that previous generations of researchers could only dream of. Cases that were genuinely unresolvable 10 years ago are now open to new analysis, and the findings, consistently, are expanding rather than contracting the mystery. The investigation continues. New discoveries are being made. New analyses are being published. New voices are entering the conversation from disciplines that were not previously part of the discussion. The answers, when they come, and they will come, will not merely solve a historical puzzle. They will force a fundamental revision of assumptions that underpin our entire understanding of human history and human potential. We have now walked through the complete case of the Beale Ciphers, 3 encrypted messages that lead to $63 million in buried gold. From the historical record, through the physical evidence, across the competing theories, and into the modern significance of what remains unresolved. What the story of Beale Ciphers ultimately reveals is not just a historical puzzle. It is a mirror. It reflects our assumptions back at us, our assumptions about what ancient people were capable of, about how knowledge is gained and lost across the centuries, and about the relationship between what we know and what we merely think we know. The evidence presented in this documentary is real. The questions it raises are genuine. The debate among researchers is ongoing, and that is healthy. Science is not a set of conclusions. It is a process. And the process requires that we remain open to evidence that challenges what we thought we knew, however uncomfortable that challenge might be. If you came to this documentary as a skeptic, we hope the evidence gave you something to think about. If you came as a true believer, we hope the critical examination gave you a more nuanced picture. The truth, as always, lies in the evidence, not in what we want to be true. Thank you for watching. If this investigation sparked your curiosity, please subscribe to the channel. We publish new documentaries every week, covering the full range of historical mysteries that the mainstream has not yet adequately explained. Leave a comment below telling us which case you want us to investigate next. The conversation continues. The investigation never ends.